Hello, and welcome to JR Race Car Media. Today, we're going to talk about installing a shockwave clutch. The shockwave clutch by JR Race Car is offered in two configurations, a standard and an overdrive. Shown here is the overdrive primary and driven. When sold as a kit, the shockwave clutch also comes with a belt and your mounting hardware. The hardware kit for the primary will include the clutch bolt, key, bearing, outer steel washer, and the crank spacer. The driven kit will include a 3/4 inch locking collar, key, 3 1/4 inch spacers, and 1/62,000th shim. The tools required for the installation are a 5/16 alignment key, a 1/2 inch opened end wrench, and also a 3/16 Allen wrench. Before we install the primary on the crankshaft, we need to locate the crank shim accordingly. As you can see, one side is radiused on the inner diameter and the other side is beveled. These features help the clutch bolt stay tight during operation. Locate the shim so that the radiused inner diameter touches the shoulder of the crankshaft and the bevel side stays out. Next, install the clutch key. Then slide the primary onto the crank. Slide the outer steel washer onto the clutch bolt so that the stepped portion goes into the bearing. Locate the PTO upright with the bearing onto the clutch. Then slide the bolt and outer steel washer and thread it into the crankshaft by hand. Next, thread in your PTO upright bolts and tighten them accordingly. To tighten the clutch bolt, hold the clutch with one hand. Then, take your 1/2 inch wrench and tighten the clutch bolt as much as you can without overcoming the force of the hand holding the clutch. Perfect. Now let's install the driven. To start, put the key on the jack shaft all the way up against the bearing. Slide the driven onto the jack shaft all the way to the upright. Notice that the spring and the helix are on the outside of the car, not facing towards the inside. This is called a reverse driven. A standard driven is the opposite, where the spring and the helix are facing towards the inside of the car. Slide the alignment key along the back side of the driven sheave towards the fixed sheave on the primary. If the inside of the alignment key is flush with the inside of the fixed sheave on the primary, the clutch is aligned 5/16 of an inch. If the key does not line up flush, then change the shims in between the driven and the jack shaft upright accordingly. Here's an overhead view of how to set the alignment key to verify alignment. After verifying alignment, slide the 3/4 inch locking collar against the driven and tighten with your Allen wrench. Now it's time to check belt tension. Unscrew the 3 bolts from the PTO upright, slide the belt onto the dual support plate, and then re-thread the bolts in and tighten them down. Slide the belt over both clutches. You may have to compress the driven in order to get it over the sheaves. Now rotate the wheels backwards to set the belt to the outside diameter of the driven. Notice how far the belt sticks above the sheaves in the driven. On the overdrive driven, the belt will stick out above the sheaves, while the standard shockwave driven will keep the belt flush with the edge of the sheaves. To check belt tension, take your left hand and grab the top belt in between the two clutches. Grab the helix with your right hand and turn counterclockwise as if the car was moving forward. If you're able to turn the driven with a minimal amount of force, then the belt is too loose. In order to tighten the belt, loosen the engine mounting bolts and slide the motor assembly forward. Then retighten the engine bolts and check for belt tension again. You may have to repeat this process in order to achieve proper belt tension. In order to achieve proper belt tension, when grabbing with your left hand on the top belt and turning the driven counterclockwise with the right, you should feel a heavy amount of friction. Also be sure to check the belt tension in different spots. If you are unable to slip the driven around the belt, then the belt tension is too tight. When pulling up to the starting line, the starter should be able to start the engine and the driver should be able to lift their foot off of the brake. If the car creeps forward, then you have achieved proper belt tension. And there you have it.